All right, so I opened up Maya. You can get it free, student edition if you want. I paid for an indie license, so gives me the right to sort of do small business under 100 employees. It's a pretty good deal. So pretty pricey when you get into like commercial license, but that will come. I'm not going to get an animation yet, so I'm going to actually set my workspace as modeling standard. Okay, so this is, simple. And I like to there's different ways to do this. You could look at top view, side view, perspective, front. But I kind of like just to work freehand a little bit like this. So basically, use your Option key or your Alt key, depending on if you're PC or Mac. And you use your easiest thing is a 3-button mouse. You use your left mouse to rotate. Use the center mouse to slide around. And then you use the right mouse to zoom in and out. You can also use the roller if you have a roller. But basically this is panning and this is rotating, right? I guess that's really not what it's called. It's just move and rotate. All right, so what I'm going to do is just start over here with poly modeling. And there's different ways to do this. I get a little confused, truthfully, but if I use poly modeling, I just get a shape on the grid centered out at 0. So if you see my coordinates are over here, and you see that everything is 0. So when I first started using Maya, I was sort of like, I didn't want to get into all the numbers and the typing, but you kind of get to the point where you could do both. So if I select my object here, and basically the WER keys are your best friend here. So W gives you the vectors, so you have up, and I never know which is, so this is Y, and I don't have my glasses on. I think this is X, and this is Z, I think. I have to look it up. All right, so E does the same thing with rotate. X, Y, Z. All right, R is scale. You can make bigger, smaller. I'm just going to make it around this big. So I'm going to make a little face, basically. And just to be kind of anal, I'm going to go back and I'm just going to zero everything out. Except I'm going to bring it up a little bit, but I want to get everything so I know it's 0. I know there's like a 1 key command for this, which I'm going to leave the scale what it is. Really good to learn hotkeys. I'm not there yet with that. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm wigged out. Okay. That's the fun of Maya. All right, I'm going to bring it up. And I'm just going to get myself a cube. All right, I'm going to scale the cube up. And I'm just going to build a character here, just kind of quick and simple. I'm just going to use some basic shapes. Now I'm being a little cavalier with this right now because I'm not thinking yet about mesh, because the trick is you can throw a bunch of shapes together and you got a character, big deal. Okay, that's actually probably a good thing to just do as a first experiment. Maybe I'll just show you guys. But it sort of skips through some things that end up, just you need to certain procedures and certain pipelines with your mesh are important, and I'll show you what I mean pretty quickly. And again, this is a tutorial by someone who's still learning, so I might do things, and an experienced person might say that's the hard way to do it. But that's kind of, I'm learning while teaching myself, so that's kind of truthfully the way I like to work. Now, just as a little trick here, I'm just going to duplicate, so Command D And there's a lot of settings that if you get, more serious about this, you need to, look at a lot of settings about the way things are duplicated. But I'm just going to leave it pretty basic. And I'm just kind of throwing this character together real fast. But I am kind of keeping it in parts because I'm thinking I might end up making something out of this. So I want to keep it everything kind of broken down because I might be rigging this and seeing if I can make a rigged character, which is a whole other ball of wax. But for now, I'm just going to sort of cobble together this guy. And one of the things with Maya that it's gonna take a little time to get used to if you've never done 3D modeling, is just learning how to move things around and just getting comfortable with it. I'm already defying all sorts of procedures of getting things on, keeping the orientation straight. That's something that I'm still working on, but we're learning together here a little bit. All right, so I'm just, and like a lot of other programs, you can do lasso select like that. Make everything a little, see, I like that, but problem is that now I'm trying to scale everything at the same time, but everything's on a different pivot. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to group my mesh. I'm going to combine. And now I believe, yeah, so basically what I did was I wanted everything to have the same orient point, which is this point, which is also the pivot. Now let's say I don't like the pivot there. One trick here is that you hit D and you'll get a different sort of look there. And you can bring your pivot to somewhere, like I want to put the pivot in their center of gravity or something. Okay, so now when I move them around, they pivot around that, right? I'm gonna make sure I'm still on 0 here. Just being very regimented about this. Okay, so now I'm gonna move the whole thing up a little bit, put some legs. So still trying to keep it kind of broken up. Don't want to get too, you can also weld stuff together later, but there's multiple ways of sculpting, and the sort of main ways, and I'm probably gonna have the terminology wrong, but using primitives like this, so it's just polygons, using something like ZBrush and really sculpting a mesh, carving almost. I think those are the two main ways to sculpt. I like both, but I've been doing a lot more polygon sculpting just because I think I want to really understand the best ways to put mesh together. Because ultimately you want to be rigging, and when you start to get into rigs and armatures and the skeletons inside these characters, things get tricky because meshes don't work. There's problems with mesh that make animation look really bad, and you probably have all seen it. Just really weird, wonky, rubbery stuff, which some of our recent stuff that we started making more character animation, and it's a little wonky, so we're working on that. All right, I'm going to just now I'm going to do something different. I'm going to, instead of selecting the whole object, which is what I'm doing now, I'm going to right click at the object, and I'm going to go to edge. Okay, so now what this allows me to do is select one edge and move it down. All right, so I'm just going to go back to object mode, copy it, move his other foot in. Okay, so now you just have kind of a very primitive character, kind of set up. Now, a few things you could do now. You could, I could just go with this, or I could, I'm going to just show you a little sort of rough manipulation without changing the number of edges or anything right now. I'm just going to sort of move things around a little bit. So I'm using face now instead of edge, so that allows me to move the whole face. I'm gonna take this arm, and so some selection tricks. If you want to just select this last face, but there's so many parts on it that we're not going to do that. I'm going to go to vertex. I'm just going to select the vertexes. So that allows me to manipulate just that shape. So I'm just going to taper it in a little bit so it looks sort of more like a person. Now I know from doing some tutorials that you're not supposed to make polygons this way. You're supposed to actually, I mean, I can change the number of sides, but you have to be very specific with the number of sides with all your polygons, because you're eventually going to want to weld this together. So that gets tricky, because of the way meshes work. You have to think of it as like a metal fence. You have to have, ideally, all rectangles, and the reason for that, there's a few reasons. It's the way when you start bending the mesh, it's the way it bends. If you have weird shapes, you get these weird, you need flat faces, basically. You need to all be flat faces. So you start to get into weird shapes, you get more sides, then they can warp, like a piece of plywood if you sort of twisted it. You get into triangles, you get into trouble, you get these points sticking out. I'm using real sort of layman's terms, but truthfully, it's what happens.